Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel, thank you. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Battle Through the Heavens based on novel. So let's start. Everyone, be careful. Xiao Li's expression was also solemn. He waved his hand toward everyone and cried out softly. Without needing a reminder from Xiao Li, the Do Qi within everyone's body was circulated at their maximum speed. Powerful Do Qi lingered over the surface of their bodies without scattering. The numerous colors radiating out gave the area an extremely beautiful appearance. So what if you are careful? Once the fierce spirit is formed, all of you will definitely die today. The strange laughter of Protector Xian was suddenly transmitted from the black cloud. Immediately, the black cloud rippled and began to swiftly scatter. Within a short while, the black cloud that covered the sky above the valley completely dispersed. Warm sunlight once again scattered down from the sky. However, at this moment, everyone did not sense much warmth from the light. There was only a coldness present. The source of this dense coldness was from the blood-red human figure in the sky. Magic the size of the human figure was similar to an ordinary person. The blood color that spread over its body was exceptionally dark and gloomy. It appeared as though an unimaginable number of parts had been agglomerated from fresh blood. There was a feeling discharging from it that caused one's head to feel a dense coldness. Additionally, this somewhat illusionary human figure did not possess a face. Only a pair of blood-colored eyes shot out from the spot where the head was located. The blood-colored eyes did not register even the slightest emotion that a human possessed. Only a kind of endless violence and killing intent was present. This thing was basically a monster that was born to kill. Xiao Yan and the others watched this blood-colored human figure. Their brows were slightly knit. Was this that so-called fierce spirit? It was indeed very powerful. If one were to be contaminated by that violence and other negative emotions that could influence one's mind, it was likely that there would be a lot of trouble. Protector Xian, who was completely wrapped under black fog, stood in the empty air beside the blood-colored human figure in the sky. He smiled as he looked at the fierce spirit, permeated by violent emotions. He involuntarily parted his mouth and smiled. After looking down at Xiao Yang's group from a high spot, he laughed in a strange manner. This protector's target is Xiao Yang. If those unrelated people were to withdraw now, I can allow you to leave. Although these words appeared to have been spoken to everyone, Protector Xian's eyes merely paused on Su Qian and the little fairy doctor. Clearly, the only people who could cause him to feel fear among those present were these two individuals. Su Qian and the little fairy doctor naturally ignored these words of his. The two of them exchanged looks before gently exhaling. Two mighty auras suddenly surged. Sensing the pressure of this powerful force, some of the experts, who had come forward to lend a hand from behind Xiao Yang, finally relaxed their tensed hearts a little. Experts of the Do Zone class were existences that could make others feel safe regardless of where they were. Protector Xian, you should not show such mercy to these fellows who intend to seek death. These people are those that will not cry until they are about to die. Han Feng's face involuntarily revealed a smile upon seeing Protector Xian successfully agglomerating the fierce spirit. He raised his head and laughed loudly. In that case, it looks like this protector can only reluctantly accept the spirits belonging to two experts of the Do Zone class. TSK, if I were to possess these two spirits along with the two kinds of heavenly flames within Xiao Yang's body, whose credit can be greater than mine when I return to the hall this time around. Protector Xian spoke sinisterly. Han Feng smiled. His gaze was savage as he stared at Xiao Yang and said, "My good junior. If you had continued to hide in the Jiunan Academy, I would have been unable to do anything to you. However, you delivered yourself to this place. You cannot blame this senior for being tough." Xiao Yang glanced at Han Feng as he softly said, "A mere dog that has lost its home. This only allows you to live for a little longer. There is no need to be this happy." In this current battleground, Xiao Yang's side could barely contend against 3 elite Do Zones in total. Han Feng's side, on the hand, would have 4 experts equivalent to a Do Zone even after excluding Mo Tianxing. At a glance, it appeared that Han Feng had obtained the upper hand. Hence, at this moment, Mo Tianxing's position was extremely important. If he were to help Han Feng's group, the chances of Xiao Yang's group being victorious would be extremely low. However, if he were to help Xiao Yang, the number of experts of both parties would be even. The helper that Han Feng had spent great effort to invite over would be meaningless. Mo Tianxing also knew his use in the battleground at this moment. However, he still maintained an expressionless face. He naturally also understood that if one were to look at the battleground on the surface, it would appear that Xiao Yang's group was at a disadvantage. However, the cautious him was unwilling to join any group in such a random manner. Although he clearly understood that Xiao Yan currently had the strength of a 6-star Do Huang, Mo Qianxing still felt an exceptional fear for him. The degree of fear he felt even exceeded Su Qian and the little fairy doctor. After all, these two people did not have the ability to beat a 7-star Do Zone class expert until he was nearly crippled. This thought swiftly flashed within Mo Qianxing's heart. A moment later, he smiled faintly and said, "The matter today has become a little too big. The old me does not have the boldness of you young people. Hence, I shall not participate in these matters." The sudden appearance of the glaring light nearly overshadowed the sunlight from the sky. Quite a number of people were stunned because of this unexpected change. Numerous alarmed gazes were thrown to the sky. Xiao Yang's fist had made blatant contact with the fierce spirit. However, the strange glow that had erupted from the white-colored ring was just like a barrier that completely blocked the frightening force on the fierce spirit's fist. After which, a wave of powerful suction force surged out of it. The suction force appeared very suddenly, but it was extremely swift and powerful. It was just like a whirlpool rotating at an incredible speed. The source of the swirl was the small snow-white ring. The suction force had just appeared when it targeted and covered the fierce spirit, still spreading its violence. At this instant, the fierce spirit that originally only had killing intent began to show fear. Its body trembled as it tried to escape the region of the suction force. The miserable screech that was emitted from the fierce spirit contained a craziness and terror. However, the aim of the fierce spirit escaping did not succeed. Tian Huazunja within the ring appeared to have the full intent of obtaining it. An unusually strong glow erupted and the suction force grew by a couple of times. The fierce spirit began to emit waves of frightened cries. Its body was just like a wild beast that was pressed under a rock as it struggled to flee. On top of feeling a joy in his heart, Xiao Yang involuntarily also felt shock, as he watched this fierce spirit come closer and closer to the ring despite trying its best to escape. It was unexpected that Tian Huazunja was able to display such a skill in his condition. It seemed that he did hide something from Xiao Yang. At the very least, he was not without any ability to protect himself as he had claimed. Xiao Yang has to admit that he would have difficulty suppressing a spirit at the Do Zone class in such an easy manner. Although, one could not exclude some unique skills of dealing with the fierce spirit that Tian Huazunja possessed, any kind of technique still required some self-preservation ability. Although Tian Huazunja might appear to be in a weak condition, anyone who dared to reveal an evil intention to him would likely find that the unlucky one was themselves. While this thought lingered in Xiao Yang's heart, Protector Xian in the sky also felt something regarding the situation of this fierce spirit. He immediately let out a furious roar as he changed the seal formed by his hand. Powerful spiritual strength surged out of the black fog. The resistance of the fierce spirit became increasingly strong with the intervention of Protector Xian. In the end, it began to gradually withdraw from the range of the suction force. "Xiao Yang, lend me a hand." The powerful glow continued to erupt from the ring. However, in the face of the resistance of two Do Zones, even Tian Huazunja was ultimately unable to resist them. A voice subsequently sounded within Xiao Yang's heart. Xiao Yang's heart tightened upon hearing this. Although he saw that Tian Huazunja had held back a little, he was still no match for the combination of the fierce spirit and Protector Xian. He swiftly asked, "How can I help you?" "Transfer your spiritual strength into the ring." Tian Huazunja did not say anything unnecessary at this critical moment as he swiftly replied. Xiao Yang's expression was solemn as he nodded. His eyes were immediately shut slightly as a powerful spiritual strength spread out from between his brows. It immediately surged into the snow-white ring in an unceasing manner. The originally somewhat ancient jade ring had recovered its original white luster as it emitted a faint glow. With Xiao Yang's support, the suction force erupted from the ring immediately multiplied by a couple of times. After just having taken a couple of steps back, the fierce spirit staggered under the suction force that had erupted. Its body unsteadily pounced forward. However, in the next instant, it hurriedly maintained a strange stance and resisted with all its might. At this moment, its distance from Xiao Yang was merely half a meter. Xiao Yang could even sniff the wild violence its body gave off. Bastard. The black fog around Protector Xian in the sky churned intensely. It faintly revealed a furious face of panic. The strange suction force had an exceptionally powerful effect on spiritual strength. Even after joining hands with the fierce spirit, Protector Xian could only endure the battle. Moreover, this kind of stalemate gradually turned in the favor of Xiao Yang when he gave the ring more spiritual strength. This scene in the sky was also absorbed in the eyes of everyone below. All of their faces immediately became stunned. They did not know what was happening with the strong glow. However, they could hear from the somewhat flustered and exasperated voice of Protector Xian that his current situation was not very good. At this moment, something that even these elite dozongs present were unable to do was being done by this black-robed, young man in the sky in front of everyone's eyes. This scene did not allow anyone to not feel shock within their hearts. Han Feng's expression at this moment was also unnaturally ugly. The cold smile that had surfaced earlier, because of Xiao Yang's arrogant act, had slowly stiffened since the strong light appeared. No matter how he thought, he was unable to think of what Xiao Yang could rely on to block the fierce spirit and Protector Xian. Han Feng knew that Xiao Yang's Fire Lotus Do technique was extremely powerful. However, the latter was clearly not using that kind of Do technique at this moment. However, the appearance of Protector Xian and the fierce spirit caused his heart to gradually sink. The overwhelming confidence from earlier had been significantly reduced. Mo Tianxing by the side glanced at Han Feng without leaving a trace. A gloating expression flashed across his heart. He had long said that one could not use common sense to deduce what Xiao Yang would do. If one became enemies with him, various unexpected changes would cause one to have difficulty defending. Actually, a guess had already appeared in his heart when Xiao Yang had decided to meet the fierce spirit and Protector Xian head-on. With his understanding of Xiao Yang, acting without thought was not something that this cautious fellow would do. It is fortunate that I did not get involved. The old me should just treat this as watching a show. It is best to avoid participating in this kind of situation where the victor is unknown. Mo Tianxing's footsteps slowly withdrew as he laughed within his heart. This position was not far from the mountain wall. He would be able to leave at the first instance should any unexpected event occur. This careful old fellow was actually still considering his retreat path even at such a moment. He was indeed worthy of being a cunning old fox who had lived for so many years. Magic the longsword had just moved when a cold snort sounded beside Han Feng's ears. A graceful and moving figure appeared beside Xiao Yang. Her hand was extended and it immediately grabbed the longsword. Grayish air erupted and a powerful corrosive strength instantly corroded the longsword into nothingness. After which, a palm struck out. Wind moved along with the palm, and a thread of faint stench appeared with it. This wind drifted toward Han Feng, appearing to be completely void of any strength. Han Feng's expression was solemn as he faced this seemingly powerless palm. His toes pressed against the empty air as his body swiftly flashed back and dodged it. He swept his eyes sinisterly under him, only to see that old Ying Shan, who was a little slowly to act, had also been delayed by Su Qian. His heart involuntarily let out a curse. The little fairy doctor struck, and forced Han Feng back one blow at a time. She did not step forward and attack. Instead, she stood beside Xiao Yang. Her cold gaze remained locked on Han Feng. The little fairy doctor's white dress gently fluttered as she stood in the empty air. Her alluring graceful figure was vaguely visible underneath it, appearing quite enchanting. Her long snow-like hair extended to her narrow waist, a waist one could encircle with an arm. By combining this with her grayish-purple eyes, an unusual magical charm suddenly appeared and caused an unusual flicker to appear in the eyes of quite a number of people. This magical charm, however, caused the current Han Feng to be extremely furious when it appeared in his eyes. He clearly understood that the little fairy doctor was a little stronger than him. With her protecting Xiao Yang, it was going to be difficult for his attack to succeed. When he thought until this point, Han Feng could only throw his gaze to the spot where Protector Xian was located. Currently, all he could was hope that the latter could stop Xiao Yang's unusual tactic. Otherwise, today, a frightening low roar was transmitted from within the cluster of black fog. After this thought flashed across Han Feng's heart. Damn it, what are you planning to do? Han Feng's heart immediately became chilled when he heard this roar from Protector Xian. His gaze slid toward Xiao Yang, only to see the fierce spirit in front of him swiftly approaching him. After which, a chewing sound appeared. The spirit was absorbed into a white-colored ring on Xiao Yang's hand under that intense light. It is that ring that is doing this trick. Han Feng's heart immediately became surprised when he looked at the ring. However, with his strength, it was difficult for him to sense Qian Huozunja hidden within it. One could see the black fog around Protector Xian churn intensely when the fierce spirit was absorbed into the ring. It swiftly became pale. A mere moment later, it revealed a black figure. At this moment, the figure was somewhat blurry. One could even sense a kind of illusionary feeling when looking at it. Its aura had also become much weaker and more chaotic compared to before. Clearly, after the fierce spirit, which had a spiritual connection with Protector Xian, was captured, the former had suffered a nearly fatal blow. His spirit was greatly wounded and the damage could be described as miserable. This point was something that one could tell from how difficult it was for the black fog to continue to hide his body. With Protector Xian's current condition, it was likely that even Xiao Yan would be able to capture him. One could tell. This Protector Xian was currently crippled. The glaring light suddenly disappeared. Protector Xian's frightened and furious roar sounded at the same time. Xiao Yang, return the fierce spirit to this protector. Otherwise, I will definitely let you die an extremely miserable. Xiao Yang completely ignored Protector Xian's furious roar. The fierce spirit had been connected to Protector Xian's spirit. Now that the fierce spirit had been captured, he would suffer an intense backlash. With his spiritual strength suffering a great blow, his strength would definitely decline. The current him already posed no problem, and was nothing to be afraid of. At this moment, Xiao Yang's eyes were surprised as he stared at the white-colored ring on his hand. He could faintly see a bright redness on the ring's surface. However, Xiao Yang was unable to probe the ring to see the situation within it, probably because of the ring itself, or Qian Huozunja. Xiao Yang, the fierce spirit has temporarily been sealed by me. However, the spiritual strength that I have stored is basically completely exhausted. The exhaustion this time around is too great, and I will soon descend into a slumber. You must definitely remember to help me repair and moisten my spirit within 10 days. Otherwise, my spirit will likely be completely scattered. At that time, the fierce spirit I have sealed will likely appear once again. Qian Huozunja's voice suddenly sounded in Xiao Yang's heart, while Xiao Yang was feeling surprise. This time around, his voice contained a kind of weakness that was difficult to hide. Despite subduing the fierce spirit, the exhaustion he felt was immense. Xiao Yang was startled when he heard this. He hurriedly asked in his heart, within 10 days. Old Mr. Yao, this is not a joke. Some of the medicinal ingredients required to repair a spirit are extremely difficult to find. Where would I go and find them within 10 days? I am not asking you to completely heal my spirit within 10 days. It is fine as long as you are able to get something to nourish my spirit and wake me up from my slumber. Qian Huozunja's voice immediately sounded in reply. Moreover, it was even more anxious. It seemed that he had little remaining time left. Xiao Yang only sighed in relief when he heard these words. It was not difficult to randomly get something to nourish one's spirit. He should be able to do that within 10 days. Old Mr. Yao, please rest assured that the little me will definitely summon you from your slumber within 10 days. Xiao Yang spoke in a solemn voice. Although he could not trust Qian Huozunja completely like he trusted Yao Lao, Qian Huozunja's presence would really benefit Xiao Yang. Regardless of whether it was in terms of experience or training, these extremely old demons would be able to provide him with a lot of help. The old me can rest assured with these words of yours. I'll leave it to you. This matter is extremely important. Qian Huozunja relaxed only after hearing Xiao Yang's reply. He and Xiao Yang might have only been acquainted for a short period of time, but his old, sharp eyes were able to tell a little about Xiao Yang's character. It was due to this that he dared to hand this life of his to Xiao Yang at such a time. Although this was partly due to the situation forcing his hand, it also required him to trust Xiao Yang. The words of Qian Huozunja became weaker. When the final word landed, his voice had completely scattered. Xiao Yang could vaguely sense the spirit within the white-colored ring become dim. Han Feng also let out a cold smile after being reprimanded by Protector Xian. He did not continue to argue with him. All that had occurred was a killing intent in his heart. It was likely that he would quietly murder Protector Xian even if he did not die in this place today. Protector Xian's mouth was panting as his blood-red eyes turned toward Xiao Yang with a shua sound. A wildness had gradually surged into his eyes, because of the intense pain that was transmitted from his spirit. His tone was dense as he asked, "Are you going to return it or not?" Xiao Yang kept his indifferent manner in the face of Protector Xian's crazy eyes. He glanced at Han Feng and half-smiled as he said, if you really kill Han Feng, I might give it some thought. I will act immediately if you return the fierce spirit to me. Protector Xian could not be bothered with other things. He hurriedly made another demand when he heard the suspiciousness from Xiao Yang's tone being reduced. However, he did not sense the gaze on his back full of killing intent. Xiao Yang's eyes smiled as they looked at Protector Xian. The ridicule in his eyes was becoming denser. Protector Xian finally understood that he had been tricked after having sensed the mocking gaze of Xiao Yang. The panting from his mouth grew more intense. The viciousness in his eyes also became denser. A moment later, a wild roar was finally emitted from his mouth. 10 spirit envoys, kill him. The 10 black figures on the mountain wall did not hesitate. They suddenly rushed forth after hearing Protector Xian's roar. Immediately, 10 enormous dark black chains tore through the air like poison snakes. They shot toward Xiao Yang while emitting a clanging sound. Xiao Yang widened his mouth as he looked at the chains being shot over indifferently. He widened his mouth and a cluster of jade-green flames was spat out. His hand moved and formed a seal. The flame wiggled and turned into 10 large flame hands. They were violently clenched as they grabbed the chains. After which, a thread of hot jade-green fire followed the chains and rushed toward the 10 black figures. Under Xiao Yang's control, the flame chains appeared like 10 long rods. They transformed into a fire glow that suddenly shot back along their original path with a flick of a finger. The speed of the flame chains was extremely quick. Within the blink of an eye, it launched past the distant air and appeared in front of the 10 spirit envoys. In their shock, the 10 black figures hurriedly retreated. However, their speed was on a completely different level when compared to the flame chains. Hence, the figures had just moved when the flame chains arrived. After which they were like sharp swords as they violently penetrated their chests. The 10 figures immediately stiffened following the penetration of the fire chains. The chains also slowly became softer. Finally, they abruptly fell from the sky. The jade-green flame on them swiftly left and returned to Xiao Yang's body in front of everyone's eyes. Within a short couple of exchanges, the 10 spirit envoys, whose strength were at the Do Wang class, were killed by Xiao Yang's hands. This scene caused quite a number of people present to quietly swallow a mouthful of saliva. A combination of 10 expert Do Wangs would be able to fight a little even if they were facing an expert Do Huang. It was unexpected that they were so worthless in Xiao Yang's hands. The glow in Xiao Yang's eyes gradually soared after killing the 10 spirit envoys. The bone wings on his back were flapped and a wind lightning sound appeared. His body then appeared in front of Protector Xian in a ghost-like manner. Since you have come, there is no longer a need for you to leave. The people from the Hall of Souls all deserve to die. A savage arc was lifted on Xiao Yang's face as his palm abruptly struck out, and a jade-green flame spat out like a volcano. This swift attack by Xiao Yang also caused Protector Xian's expression to change drastically. His body swiftly withdrew, but with his seriously wounded condition, his strength was already far inferior to what it was before. Hence, a thread of flame caught up to him even though he had dodged quickly. The hot temperature caused him to emit a miserable screech. The black fog around Protector Xian's body was swiftly reduced while the flame burned. The flame had dispersed by the time Protector Xian had withdrawn by 100 meters. He was incomparably miserable at this moment. Protector Xian was panting as he stopped his body. The eyes he shot at Xiao Yang could no longer be described as vicious. Just when he was about to turn into a violent rage, a human figure suddenly appeared beside him. His gaze swept across it and he immediately cried out furiously, "Han Feng, join hands with me and kill this little." Han Feng's body immediately trembled after Protector Xian's spirit entered his body. A wildly violent yet majestic aura swept from his body like a tornado. The surrounding air fled under the pressure of such an aura. A black fog that was so dense that it could almost cover one's mind surged out of Han Feng's body. While his aura surged, Han Feng's size also clearly expanded by 2 circles. There were even some bubbles that were formed by energy and began to revoltingly pulse on his skin. Clearly, Han Feng had obtained an extremely great spiritual strength after swallowing Protector Xian's spirit, but the power of this strength was something that he had difficulty controlling. It was due to this lack of control did these energy bubbles form. Han Feng never hesitated when he attacked and killed Protector Xian, nor did he hesitate when he swallowed of his spirit. His actions were extremely smooth and natural. Hence, by the time everyone recovered, they sensed the majestic aura that surged out of Han Feng's body. The strength of this aura was something that even the little fairy doctor was inferior to. According to her estimation, the strength of the current Han Feng should have already reached the peak of a 5-star Do zone. He was 1 level higher when compared to the little fairy doctor. Xiao Yang's brows knit as he sensed the spreading aura from Han Feng's body. This kind of disgusting scene of swallowing a soul was not something that he had seen for the first time. It seemed that most of the people from the Hall of Souls knew this skill, a skill that caused one to feel incomparably disgusted. Relying on swallowing the spirit of a companion to strengthen one's own strength might result in quite a severe sequelae in the future, but they would at least be able to obtain a temporary strength for a certain amount of time. I will deal with him. The greyish-purple eyes of the little fairy doctor stared at Han Feng. She felt his rising aura and softly spoke, "Together help me by some time." Xiao Yan gently exhaled as he replied in a deep voice, "Although there might be some difficulty defeating him in his current condition, I am absolutely confident that I can delay him." The little fairy doctor smiled sweetly and nodded. "Try your best not to undo the seal of the woeful poisoned body." Xiao Yan glanced at the moving smile on the little fairy doctor before sighing softly. The little fairy doctor was slightly startled as she softly replied, "I'll try my best. However, the opponent we face this time is not weak. It will be quite troublesome to deal with them if I don't undo the seal." Xiao Yang bitterly laughed upon hearing her reply. He said, "The reason I asked you to follow beside me was to help you control the woeful poison body. Instead, the time until your woeful poison body erupts is growing closer. If any sudden situation were to occur, and something happened to you, how do you expect me to have a peace of mind?" The little fairy doctor gently smiled. She said, "Although this period of time is filled with danger, I have been far happier than when I was alone in the Chuyun Empire. Hence, if anything were to happen, it is because I have a terrible fate. It has nothing to do with you. Do you think that I will think this way?" Xiao Yang helplessly shook his head as he replied. The little fairy doctor covered her small mouth, and her long eyelashes came together. She blinked as she laughed in spite of herself and said, "It seems that you won't. Is your flirting over? If it is, you can all prepare to die." A cold voice that contained an incomparable killing intent suddenly sounded, interrupting the conversation between Xiao Yang and the little fairy doctor. Their eyes slid to Han Feng, who was suspended in the sky covered in a black fog. At this moment, it seemed that Han Feng had already absorbed Protector Xian's spiritual strength. This caused his strength to leap forward for a short period of time. As he sensed the powerful energy flowing within his body, the slight fear he felt for the little fairy doctor completely vanished. A dense killing intent that was difficult to extinguish replaced it. Han Feng was suspended in the sky. Under the cover of the surrounding black fog that traveled in all directions, he appeared just like a demon that had climbed from hell, filled with evil and a dark, cold aura. The little fairy doctor inhaled a deep breath. Her long hands suddenly formed seals. Immediately, waves of deep grayish dough qi began to spurt from her body like a fountain, sky corrosive rain. The dough qi flew into the sky and swiftly agglomerated into a gray-colored cloud layer. Soon deep gray-colored rain scattered down from above in all directions. This gray-colored liquid body might appear to be without any energy, but a sharp-eyed person would be able to notice an extremely faint black scar appear in the air where the rain droplet fell. These rain droplets that contained a lethal poison did not land on the ground. When they had descended a certain distance, they would suddenly scatter before transforming into a poison gas that rose and re-entered the grey cloud. After which, they once again transformed into a raindrop and scattered down. This cycle repeated endlessly. The densely packed deep grey raindrops fell from the sky as a black figure broke through the air and appeared in the rain. Its sharp sword aura shot toward the little fairy doctor. However, the moment the enormous black-colored long sword revealed itself, the countless raindrops seemed to be pulled by a suction force, as they shot toward it from all directions. The black fog on the longsword's surface emitted waves of kai-kai sounds as it gradually became fainter. Its penetrating speed had also become much slowly, appearing as though it had been inserted into an extremely deep quagmire. Han Feng in the distance frowned when he saw that the black fog longsword appeared to have difficulty progressing even an inch within the rain. The little fairy doctor's tactics were strange. This kind of potent poison strength could even corrode dough qi. It might have been difficult for me to defeat you in the past. Now, however, magic, spiritual chant. A cold smile surfaced on Han Feng's face. His hand suddenly changed and an extremely powerful spiritual strength surged from between his brows. Sky sinister poison hand. A voice that was void of any emotion was softly spat out from the little fairy doctor's mouth. Immediately, a grayish-purple majestic dough qi surged out of her body. It instantly formed two enormous dough qi hands. These dough qi hands were extended and immediately grabbed the black fog longsword. The enormous black fog sword had difficulty penetrating further after facing such resistance. However, the sharp, dark, cold sword aura at its tip caused the little fairy doctor's skin to emit waves of piercing pain. After having swallowed Protector Xian's spirit, Han Feng's strength was greater than hers. It was naturally no longer as relaxing as it was in the past to block him. After all, each star level within the Do Zone class was an enormous gap. It was quite difficult to leap across it. The greyish-purple Do Chi hands and the black fog longsword descended into a stalemate. A moment later, a cold glint flickered through the little fairy doctor's eyes. The seal on her hand suddenly changed and a soft cry was spat from her mouth. The cry had just sounded when the large Do Chi hands expanded. Immediately, one of them grabbed the tip of the sword while the other grabbed its hilt. The greyish-purple Do Chi, which was extremely corrosive, swiftly surrounded the sword. After which, the sword suddenly snapped, crack. A clear sound resounded over the sky. One could see that the enormous black fog longsword had been broken into two by the little fairy doctor. The Do Chi and spiritual strength contained within it was swiftly corroded by the greyish-purple Do Chi. Han Feng's body also shook when the black fog longsword was brutally destroyed by the little fairy doctor. His throat emitted a faint voice as he laughed in a dark manner. One really could not tell that a woman like you would possess such powerful tactics. However, despite having destroyed my spirit sword, it is likely that the spirit glow on it has given you a hard time, right? The little fairy doctor's face was cold and indifferent. She ignored Han Feng's words. Her delicate hands that were forming a seal trembled gently a couple of times. The unusual spirit sword glow had mostly ignored her Do Chi defenses, and had instead attacked her spirit. Had she not been an elite Do Zone, and had not possessed great spiritual strength, it was likely that she would have suffered a serious injury this time around. Do Chi slowly rotated on the little fairy doctor's hand. The piercing pain and numbness gradually paled. Her eyes glanced at Xiao Yan, who was putting all his attention on merging the fire lotus. Finally, she sighed in relief after sensing that the fire lotus within Xiao Yan's hand was agglomerating into an embryonic form. Su Qian and old Ying Shan faced each other from a distance not far below the battleground of the little fairy doctor and Han Feng. They did not use their full strength in their occasional exchanges, because old Ying Shan already had a retreating notion within his heart. He knew that the so-called union today was most likely going to fail. Moreover, Xiao Yang's group clearly had a grudge that was difficult to resolve with Han Feng. All that he was after, on the other hand, was the Bodhisattva body transformation saliva. He did not wish to participate in all the problematic matters between the others. Hence, he did not reveal any ability when fighting with Su Qian. Su Qian understood this point. In any case, his aim was to delay old Ying Shan and prevent him from intervening in the battle above. Since old Ying Shan was happy to delay time, Su Qian would naturally not object. If Han Feng were to know that the helper he had spent great effort to invite was playing such a trick at this critical time, it was likely that he would be so furious that his Do Chi would not even be able to flow properly. The open ground was completely silent. At this moment, the experts invited by both sides did not fight, because they knew that the true battleground was above. They were only here for support and not actual use. Although the many experts present would be able to pose some threat to a Do Zone if they were to join hands, they were not foolish enough to do something that required them to risk their lives and offend an elite Do Zone for no reason. Today's matter was a grudge between Xiao Gate and the Demon Flame Valley, Xiao Yang and Han Feng. These experts did not wish to get involved with this matter. After all, if they were to stand on the wrong side, they would end up suffering in the future. Hence, remaining neutral at this moment and not helping either side was the most appropriate choice. Quite a number of people quietly wiped off some cold perspiration as they watched the shocking momentum of the battle in the sky. The fight between experts of the Do Zone class was indeed dazzling. This kind of majestic strength, where one could shake space with the raise of one's hand, was the level that a countless number of people pursued. Bang! An intense energy explosion resounded through the sky with a bang. Enormous Do Chi fireworks accompanied the powerful ripple-like hurricane as it spread out. The two crossing figures also quickly withdrew with heavy footsteps. The little fairy doctor's feet ruthlessly stomped on empty air. Each time her foot landed, the air would emit some waves. This continued for over a dozen steps, before the little fairy doctor finally stabilized her body. She gently inhaled and exhaled a couple of times, wiped off a thread of blood on the corner of her mouth, and raised her head. Her gaze was icy-cold as she glared at Han Feng on the opposite side with his sleeves shattered. Compared to the little fairy doctor, Han Feng's appearance was a little miserable. On the whole, however, his injuries were much lighter than the little fairy doctor's wounds after the earlier stunning battle. His strength had already exceeded the little fairy doctor, after having swallowed Protector Xian's spirit. The black fog covered the sky. It emitted a tidal wave-like cold feeling. Waves swept continuously, as though there was no end to it. This black fog sea was formed from all of the Dou Qi within Han Feng's body, and possessed an extraordinary might. A cold smile flowed over Xiao Yang's face, as he watched the black fog that covered the sky. He gently waved his sleeves and the three-color fire lotus left his palm. With a flick of his finger, it swiftly shot toward the black fog. The little fairy doctor's eyes stared intently at the fire lotus that shot over. She suddenly bit the tip of her tongue when it passed by her head. A mouthful of fresh blood, that contained a hint of purple, was spat out before it adhered to a part of the fire lotus. Hurry and withdraw. Xiao Li's heart was shocked when he saw the fire lotus in Xiao Yang's hand fly out. He immediately pulled at Zi Yang beside him and hurriedly withdrew. He knew just how terrifying the strength of the fire lotus was. Sumai and the others were startled upon hearing Xiao Li's cry. They did not hesitate, as all of them hurriedly withdrew out of the valley like rabbits. Some of the experts and faction leaders in the open ground also followed. However, some of the more cautious people hesitated and refused to follow, afraid they might fall for a trap. Xiao Li's group had just rushed out of the valley when the three-colored fire lotus in the sky, carrying a gorgeous fire tail, charged into the cold fog that permeated the sky. Bang! The silence continued for a moment after the fire lotus rushed into the black fog region. After which, a soul-stirring explosion suddenly resounded from the black fog. A frightening fire wave, 1,000 feet tall, suddenly spread out of the black fog. The entire valley began to shake from the spreading remnant fire wave. Enormous crack lines began to climb out like spiderwebs as huge rocks fell with loud bangs. The entire valley that had built from black metal rock suddenly collapsed. Upon seeing this scene, the expressions of the many experts, who had not left earlier, instantly turned white. At this moment, the Demon Flame Valley was in complete chaos. The enormous rocks that rolled down from the wall caused the people from the Demon Flame Valley, who did not have time to prepare themselves, to suffer great losses. It was still all right for some agile experts. They were still able to dodge this great calamity with their speed. However, those who were slow were buried in an enormous rock ruin. The experts in the open ground, who were late to leave, only managed to flee from the valley after some graceful dodging. Due to the frightening wave from the enormous fire in the sky, no one dared to fly. They were afraid of being struck by the wave. Their ending would likely be quite miserable if that happened. Only after everyone fled the Demon Flame Valley in a miserable manner did they stop running, but they had all been shaken up pretty badly. They stood on a slope and looked at the many mountain peaks around them that had suddenly become empty. All of them involuntarily inhaled a cool breath. The forest of this mountain range had been destroyed by Xiao Yang's fire lotus. Everyone stood outside of the valley in a hushed manner. The atmosphere was very quiet. There was a look of sedation within the eyes of quite a number of people. It was likely that even an ordinary elite Do Zone would have difficulty creating such frightening destruction. It was unexpected that it all came from Xiao Yang's hands. Only at this moment did the doubt regarding the rumor of Xiao Yang being able to contend with an elite Do Zone quietly disappear. Within the crowd, Sumai, Wu Tai, Old Ying Jiyu, and the other helpers that Xiao Li had summoned exchanged looks with each other. They could see a shock that was difficult to hide in the eyes of the other party. This was not the first time that they had seen Xiao Yang's Fire Lotus Do technique. When they had followed him to the Jioma Empire back then, Xiao Yang had displayed it once against the Misty Cloud sect. However, the strength then was much weaker compared now. Clearly, the might of this Fire Lotus Do technique had grown extremely quickly following the increase of Xiao Yang's level. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.